Today, I want to talk about something that most of us misread every single day: the silence of the men in our lives, what it actually means, where it comes from, and why so many of us have spent years getting it completely wrong. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. There was something I heard years ago that completely changed the way I looked at the men in my life. It wasn't a book, it wasn't a study, it was a quiet confession from someone the whole world believed was impossible to break. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. A man whose entire identity seemed built on strength, confidence, and discipline. The kind of person who looked like he could carry the weight of the world without ever flinching. But behind that image was a truth almost no one expected to hear. He confessed that during a period of breakdown, he didn't want to do anything, didn't want to go anywhere, didn't want to see anyone. And the part that stayed with me wasn't even that he had struggled. It was something much quieter. He said he didn't even know what depression was back then. He had no name for what he was feeling. He only knew something inside him had gone dark. So he did what countless men have learned to do. He stayed quiet. No dramatic breakdown, no desperate cry for help, just silence. The kind of silence that's almost invisible because it doesn't demand attention. A man who looked completely invincible on the outside was quietly falling apart on the inside, and almost nobody noticed. Once I heard his story, I couldn't stop seeing the same pattern everywhere. Not just celebrities, ordinary men we pass every single day without giving their silence a second thought. Our fathers, our brothers, our husbands, our sons. The man who says everything's good, even when his eyes tell a completely different story. That's when I started paying closer attention, because I realized I had spent years misunderstanding silence. And maybe so had everyone else. I want to tell you about one evening I've never been able to forget. It wasn't a special day. Nothing warned me that an ordinary moment would stay with me for years. The house was peaceful. Dinner was almost ready. Everything looked exactly the way it always did. Then the front door opened. The person I loved had just come home after receiving difficult news at work. The kind that quietly shakes your confidence. The kind that makes a person question their worth. I looked up, expecting frustration, maybe anger. Instead, I saw almost nothing. He walked inside slowly, placed his keys on the table with unusual care, took off his shoes, hung up his jacket. Every movement felt mechanical, like someone following a routine they no longer had the energy to complete. He simply walked to the kitchen table, pulled out a chair, sat down, and stared into empty space. Not at his phone, not at the television, just nothing. His face was expressionless, but somehow that expressionless face carried more pain than tears ever could. I walked over and gently asked, "What's wrong?" He didn't even look up. After a long pause, he quietly answered, "Nothing." Then, "I'm fine." Those two words frustrated me, because anyone could see he wasn't fine. His shoulders looked heavier than usual, his eyes seemed distant. Everything about him said he was hurting, yet he insisted nothing was wrong. At the time, I interpreted that as rejection. I thought he was shutting me out. I thought he didn't trust me. The more he stayed quiet, the louder my own fears became. Looking back now, I realized something that never crossed my mind then. He wasn't lying. He genuinely didn't know how to explain what he was feeling. "I'm fine" wasn't a deception. It was the only emotional vocabulary he had available. Those words weren't hiding the truth. They were replacing feelings he couldn't describe. And once I finally understood that, everything changed. For years, I had been translating silence through my own emotions instead of his. I believed silence meant distance. I believed silence meant indifference. I believed silence meant I no longer mattered. None of those things were true. The silence had almost nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with the battle happening inside him. And that realization forced me to ask something much bigger. What if we've been misunderstanding quiet men our entire lives? What if silence isn't the absence of emotion, but evidence of emotions that have become too overwhelming to express? Think about the way many of us respond to emotional pain. When we're hurting, we reach for someone, we call a friend, we talk through every confusing feeling until it slowly makes sense. Speaking becomes part of healing. It's such a natural response that we often assume everyone heals the same way, but many men don't. When pain becomes overwhelming, they don't move toward people, they move away from them. Not because they don't love the people around them, but because pain pushes them inward instead of outward. They become quieter, more distant, not because they feel less, but because they feel too much. Let that sink in for a second. They don't go silent because nothing is happening. They go silent because everything is happening at once. Inside them is fear, disappointment, shame, pressure, confusion, exhaustion, regret, sometimes all of it colliding together. The silence isn't empty, it's crowded. Imagine trying to survive a violent storm while pretending the weather is perfectly clear. A man isn't sitting there with nothing on his mind. He's standing in the middle of a hurricane, doing everything he can to make sure nobody else notices the wind. And many of them become so good at hiding that storm that even the people who love them most never realize how hard they're fighting. We see the quiet, but we never see the battle that created it. The more I thought about it, the more one question refused to leave me. Why? Why do so many men instinctively choose silence when they're hurting? The answer usually doesn't begin in adulthood. It begins much earlier. Long before careers, long before relationships, it begins in childhood. Picture a little boy no older than 5. He's running across a playground, laughing without a care in the world. Then he trips. His knees scrape against the concrete. Tears immediately fill his eyes. And before those tears have a chance to fall, someone nearby says, "Come on, you're okay. Be tough. Big boys don't cry." Most people say those words with good intentions, trying to help him move on. But children don't hear intentions. They hear lessons. And little by little, that little boy begins collecting those lessons. Every time he cries, he's told to stop. Every time he looks scared, he's told to be brave. Somewhere deep inside, his brain starts building a rule. Feelings are dangerous. Showing them makes people uncomfortable. If I want to be accepted, I have to keep them to myself. Years pass. That little boy becomes a man. His body changes, his responsibilities grow, but those childhood lessons, they quietly come with him. Now life becomes complicated. He fails, he gets rejected, he worries about money, he feels pressure to succeed, to provide, to always have the answers. And every single time emotional pain appears, his mind reaches for the same survival strategy it learned decades ago. Don't cry, handle it yourself, stay quiet. To people watching from the outside, that silence can seem confusing, sometimes even hurtful. But to him, it feels normal. It's what strength has always looked like. Psychologists notice a very common pattern here. Many men simply weren't taught how to recognize, identify, or describe their emotions while growing up. They learned how to control emotions, how to suppress them, but not how to talk about them. Imagine someone handing you a page filled with words you've never learned. You're expected to read it, to explain it, but no one ever taught you the language. That's what emotional conversations can feel like for many men. People often assume silence means refusal. Sometimes it's confusion. Sometimes it's helplessness. Sometimes there really aren't any words available. Now, I want to be completely honest here. Some people listening right now will say, silence isn't always innocent. Sometimes it's manipulation. Sometimes it's emotional punishment. Sometimes it's avoidance. And they're right. Sometimes silence absolutely becomes a weapon. There are people who deliberately withdraw affection, who use quietness to create fear or guilt. That's real. It happens. And it shouldn't be excused. Understanding emotional silence doesn't mean accepting unhealthy behavior. It doesn't mean ignoring your own emotional needs. Healthy relationships still require honesty, respect, and accountability. But here's what I am asking. Before assuming the worst, pause. Instead of immediately asking, "Why is he doing this to me?" try asking, "What might he be struggling with that I can't see?" That single shift changes everything, because most of the time, the silence isn't directed at you, it's directed inward. Most men aren't trying to push the people they love away. Ironically, they often believe they're protecting them. Think about it from his perspective. If he lets you see how overwhelmed he really feels, what if you think less of him? What if he becomes another problem you have to solve? To many men, that possibility feels unbearable. So instead of sharing the weight, they shoulder all of it themselves. On the surface, that sounds strong, even noble, but underneath, it's heartbreaking, because the very moment they need someone the most is often the exact moment they isolate themselves completely. And silence always has a cost, not just for the people standing outside the wall, but for the man trapped behind it. At first, carrying everything alone can feel like strength. The illusion works for a while, but emotions don't disappear simply because they're ignored. They wait, quietly, patiently, and eventually they become heavier than anyone can carry alone. When emotions aren't felt, they find other ways to speak, sometimes through anger, sometimes through exhaustion, sometimes through a silence so deep that even the people closest to you no longer know how to reach you. That's the quiet tragedy. The man who never lets anyone in often ends up feeling completely alone, even while surrounded by people who genuinely love him. He built the walls to protect himself, brick by brick. One disappointment, one heartbreak, one be strong, one don't cry, until eventually the walls became so tall that even love struggled to climb over them. The very people he wanted to protect begin feeling rejected. His partner wonders if he still cares. His friends stop asking if he's okay, not because they stopped caring, but because after hearing "I'm fine" enough times, they eventually believe it. The distance grows, not because love disappeared, because silence quietly replaced conversation. That realization changed the way I showed up for the people I love. I stopped treating silence like a personal rejection. I stopped filling in the blanks with my own fears. Instead, I began asking a completely different question. Not, "Why won't he talk to me?" but, "What is he carrying that makes him believe he has to carry it alone?" Because the truth is, you can't force someone out of emotional silence. The harder you push, the more they often retreat. Every question from love, "Talk to me, tell me what's wrong," can begin to feel like another expectation to the person already feeling overwhelmed. Another reminder that they're disappointing someone. So the door closes a little more. Not because they don't care, because they don't know how to step through it yet. What actually helps is usually much quieter. It's patience, real patience. Not the kind that secretly expects results tomorrow. The kind that says, "I'm here, whether you're ready today, or next week, or next month." It's presence without pressure. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone isn't advice or solutions. Sometimes it's simply sitting beside them without demanding they explain every emotion they're experiencing. Because men rarely open up because someone asks the perfect question. They open up when they finally believe it's safe to tell the truth. Safety isn't created during one dramatic late-night conversation. It's built slowly, over hundreds of small moments when they admit they're tired and no one mocks them. When they admit they're scared and no one calls them weak. When vulnerability is met with understanding instead of judgment. That's how trust grows. And eventually, without anyone forcing it, the silence begins to soften. Not because someone demanded it, because someone made it safe enough to exist. Healing can't be forced, it can only be invited. So if there's a quiet man in your life right now, your father, your brother, your husband, your son, I hope you'll remember this. His silence isn't necessarily the absence of feeling, more often than we realize. It's the presence of feelings he was never taught how to carry out loud. It doesn't mean he doesn't trust you. It doesn't mean he's pushing you away. Sometimes, he's simply fighting a battle he doesn't yet know how to describe. Looking back now, I think about all the years I misunderstood quietness, all the moments I felt rejected, all the nights I assumed distance meant a lack of love. Sometimes, the silence wasn't meant to hurt me. It was someone I loved trying, in the only way he knew how, to keep his pain from becoming mine. And maybe that's the saddest part of all. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet aren't the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who struggle every single day, while convincing the world they're perfectly fine. So before you judge someone's silence, look a little closer. Listen a little longer. Because behind the quietest person in the room, there may be a story that no one has ever been patient enough to hear. If this message resonated with you, I genuinely love to hear your thoughts. The men in your life, when they suddenly go quiet, have you ever stopped to wonder what they might be carrying? Share your experience in the comments. Have you ever misunderstood someone's silence? Or has someone misunderstood yours? I read every single comment because every story matters. And if you think someone in your life needs to hear this, share it with them. You never know who might be carrying a burden they've been hiding for years. Thank you for spending these few minutes with me. Take care of yourself and take care of the people you love. I'll see you in the next one.